The late afternoon sun cast long shadows as Michael, Emily and Ben approached the house at the end of Hollow Creek. It stood alone, shrouded in an unsettling silence. A rusted wrought iron fence encircled the property, its gate creaking mournfully in the wind. Michael, ever the daredevil, puffed out his chest. "Who's scared?" he challenged. Emily clutched her brother Ben's hand, her blue eyes wide with apprehension. "It looks so empty," she whispered, staring at the darkened windows. Ben felt a shiver run down his spine. The house seemed to hum with an unseen energy. The dare was simple: to spend 10 minutes inside the abandoned house. It was a local legend whispered amongst the neighborhood kids. With a deep breath, they pushed open the creaking gate and stepped onto the overgrown path. A murder of crows cawed from a nearby oak tree, their cries echoing through the eerie silence. The front door groaned open, revealing a dusty and dimly lit hallway. Cobwebs hung like macabre decorations and dust lay thick on the floor, undisturbed for what seemed like centuries. The air inside was stale and cold, sending another involuntary shiver down Emily's spine. "Do you guys hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. A low humming sound, barely perceptible, seemed to emanate from the depths of the house. The sound sent chills down their spines. Ben shook his head, his eyes darting nervously around the room. They were in the house's living room, a grand space now shrouded in dust covers. A fireplace stood at the far end, its mantel adorned with faded photographs coated in a thick layer of dust. Drawn by an unknown force, Michael walked towards the fireplace. He picked up a photo, blowing off the dust to reveal a smiling family. A man, a woman, and a young girl, all dressed in clothes that seemed from another time. As he stared at the photo, the humming grew stronger, vibrating through the floorboards and into their very bones. Suddenly the grandfather clock at the end of the hallway chimed, its loud bong echoing through the house. They jumped, their hearts pounding in their chests. The clock hadn't been working when they entered. The sound of the clock seemed to awaken something within the house. The temperature dropped, sending a wave of goosebumps across their skin. Emily felt a cold spot brush past her, like a ghostly finger trailing down her arm. "I want to leave," she whimpered, her bravado gone. Ben, though equally terrified, tried to be brave. "Just a few more minutes," he said, his voice trembling. "Then we can go." He too felt the palpable shift in the atmosphere. It was as if they were not alone anymore. A low moan, barely audible, seemed to come from the floor above. Their eyes shot up towards the ceiling, their imaginations running wild with what could be lurking in the shadows. Michael, his face now pale, pointed towards the staircase. The banister, once dark with age, seemed to glow faintly, as if lit from within. "We have to see what that is," he whispered, his curiosity battling with his fear. Against their better judgment, they slowly started to ascend the stairs. Each creaking step amplified the sense of dread that had taken root within them. As they reached the top, the humming sound intensified, becoming a low, mournful cry that echoed through the empty hallway. The attic door stood slightly ajar, the source of the eerie glow and the mournful cries. With bated breath, they pushed the door open. The attic was dimly lit by a single window, dust motes dancing in the faint rays of sunlight. In the center stood a rocking chair, swaying gently as if pushed by an unseen hand. "No one's there," Michael whispered. The rocking chair stopped abruptly, as if responding to his words. The mournful cry grew louder, emanating from a large antique trunk in the corner. Ben reached for the lid, his fingers trembling. Inside lay a leather-bound diary. Ben picked up the diary and began to read. The diary belonged to a young woman named Eliza, who had lived in the house over a century ago. She wrote of her beloved, a soldier named Thomas, who had promised to return to her after the war. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, but Thomas never came back. Eliza, heartbroken and driven to despair, eventually died in the very room they were standing in. The diary's final entry, scrawled in shaky handwriting, described a chilling promise. Eliza vowed that her spirit would remain, forever waiting for her lost love, her mournful cries echoing through the house until his return. As Ben read the last sentence, the temperature in the attic plummeted. The air grew heavy, thick with a palpable sadness. The rocking chair, which had remained still, suddenly began to rock violently back and forth. The mournful cry intensified, filling the attic with its sorrowful sound. Emily covered her ears, tears streaming down her face. "We have to leave," she cried, her voice choked with fear. They didn't need to be told twice. Dropping the diary back into the trunk, they stumbled out of the attic, their footsteps pounding on the wooden stairs as they fled. The house seemed to sigh around them, the mournful cry following them like a ghostly chill.